Pansy, what's going on?
I'm so lonely.
What are we going to do about it?
Marianne, this is your second film with Mike Leigh since Secrets and Lies. Another incredible film, and it was one that got you an Oscar nomination. You moved to LA in the time between. You've been working a lot in television as well as film. When did that conversation start with Mike, where you're like, maybe we're going to work together again?
It officially sort of started around 2018, 2019. And we were sort of set to go in 2019, and then pandemic.
Mike Leigh has a really unusual and I think fascinating way of building films, really. It's collaborative. It involves building characters with his actors and then kind of building the film. I was wondering if you could give us a bit of insight into that by telling us about how you came up with Pansy.
He starts off the same way all the time. He works with each of the actors individually, and you're asked to bring in a list of people you know. They have to be real people. You don't have to know them terribly well. It might be a woman that works in a bakery, but there's something about her that's intriguing, that you can sort of talk about her and describe her. Can't be any of your relatives. So you have this list that can be anything from 50 to 120 people on it. And you sit down with him in these one-to-one sessions, and you discuss all these characters in as much detail as you can. And then that list gets smaller and smaller and smaller until there's about 3 or 4 people on there. And you start to merge those characters, which are going to be the basis for the character you build. And from that point, you start right from the beginning with their first memory and go right up until the age they're going to be playing in the film, but I mean in finite detail. And in the course of that process, you might go into the rehearsal room one day and Michele will be sitting in there and Mike will go, oh, you're going to be playing sisters. And so we'll go, okay, you're 3 years older than her, so we're going to start from 3 and go up. And he does it until he builds an entire family, you know, very much in the same way.
Michele, this was your 4th film with Mike, is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
What has kind of going through this process now, different times, has it kind of changed the way you approach it? Do you feel like you have shorthand with him now that you didn't before?
I mean, there's certainly shorthand, but I mean, it's always the same process, no matter, even if it's, because we've also worked with him on a play, and it's always the same process every time. And I suppose you understand his sense of humour and sort of what he's looking for and what he's interested in, and that certainly helps. But I mean, you know, I've sort of been joking about, you know, getting older and trying to remember everything, because there's a lot. You're trying to sort of cram a whole person's life in your head and their interactions with everybody else in the film. You know, some days it felt like hard information learning, you know, but it is also the full kind of experience, you know, developing where they live, you know, and talking about what they wear, and you sort of get involved in every part of the process.
Chantel feels in the film like very much like this counterbalance to Pansy, despite the shared history and this kind of shared upbringing. Was that a dynamic that you came up with as you were building the character, or did it emerge as you started working together?
It kind of evolved quite naturally, you know, because within building those characters with Mike, there are sessions whereby one of us might have to go out of the room because the other one's going to talk about their motivation and what they really thought of a certain situation. So I think quite early you could see that they were very different.
They had a very different approach to life and attitude to life. But also, when we're doing all that work, Mike is also playing God, right? So he is making the decisions that neither character can make. And also, we're creating all these people. And of course, we create the character of Pearl, the mum. And he is making decisions on Pearl's behalf. So Pearl might be doing things that's maybe, you know, one of the characters doesn't like.
Yeah.
You can guess which one.
This was like 5 months, was it? Is that right?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that, and that's just all kind of building these characters. And then how much are you rehearsing together before you start shooting?
Well, that was, we had 3 months really for rehearsals. The last 2 weeks of rehearsals are when the script kind of gets locked down. So at that point, we move to the locations. So then, you know, we get to open the drawers in our kitchen and see what's in there and just really feel at home in the place and own the space. And that's when we start doing the improvisations that are going to be in the finished product. But it's like, it's improvised and then it's repeated and repeated and repeated until we memorize it. We don't ever see a script, although there is some writing down that is done.
He doesn't give you the scenes that you're not in, is that right?
Yeah.
So I'm wondering for both of you what it was like to see the final film for the first time. I mean, there's so many scenes that have so much resonance to what we do see when you, like the scenes of you alone or together. Yeah.
Yeah, it was shocking, actually. It was quite shocking. I mean, I kept teasing Twain Barrett, who plays Moses in the film, and saying, "Where are you going when you could say you're going off for walks? What are you doing?" You know, and of course he wouldn't tell me. So it was really lovely to see that.
I mean, it is the most extraordinary experience. There's nothing like working with Mike. To be in a film and not know. And not know is a sort of wonderful experience.
I would never watch myself in anything normally. But with a Mike Leigh movie, I find that you're so sort of removed from the character that you can actually watch it and go, "Oh, that's someone else. I'm not taking responsibility for any of that. That is someone else." Do you know what I mean?
It is really difficult to be Pansy. She is just someone who wakes up like yelping in kind of like fear and anxiety every morning. It's the world seems like a very hostile place to her, and she reacts in a hostile way. What was it like to occupy that mindset when you're playing that character? And was it hard to let go?
It was difficult to be in that mindset. Yes, it was. Tiring, if nothing else. Do you know what I mean? It's exhausting being that anxious and fearful of the world. With this process, Mike's very strict about us coming out of character. So there's a whole countdown to come out of character, and you kind of park it somewhat. But those intrusive thoughts obviously are still there going around. You'd have to say, "Oh, shut up, Pansy. It's all right. It's okay," you know.
Pansy is obviously in a lot of pain, but she is very funny. I think the supermarket scene is a great example. It just the escalation of that is so perfect. Some of the insults she comes up with. I love calling the woman at the furniture store selfish for wearing makeup. You know, it's just an incredible insight into her mind. Did it surprise you when you saw the film and people laughed?
It did in Toronto. I was a bit like, "They laughing at? She's in pain." But then I started to laugh as well at some of that, because one of the instructions that I was given is that she just doesn't stop talking. She talks non-stop, which was really hard because I'm not very talkative in that way. So it was just rapid fire. A lot of the stuff that came out that we kept in when we were going to go and shoot it, and it was because she's not funny, because she has no sense of humor in that way. I guess I was just locked into her and was like, "This ain't." I knew where it was coming from.
But how much did you, in kind of like in creating the character with Mike Leigh, have that be like that self-awareness or any like kind of awareness that something is wrong that she might have to grapple with?
Right at the back of the head, because you can't, because when you can monitor the characters in a way, but you can't really interfere with them as such. You just have to let them be. And the thing of, she felt that there was something wrong, but it was her stomach or her head or her back or her teeth. You know what I mean? It was everything but you're really deeply sad. You're really deeply anxious. You're really deeply afraid. And that's what you need to deal with.
And I think also the tragedy of it is that she's surrounded by people who don't have the vocabulary to say, you know, how can I help? What help do you need? You know, obviously that comes towards the end of the film, but I think that is sort of, that's really, I find that really a difficult watch, you know, that she's obviously in trouble and actually there's no one to go, hey, are you okay?
Do you see, for both of you, that ending as a hopeful one?
The right answer and the proper answer is to say it is absolutely up for interpretation. And I think that is very much how Mike wants it to be viewed. And I really understand that I know what I feel. Like Michelle Austin, the punter who watches it, is like, I know that I feel that I would want it to be a very positive thing, that this is the moment in which actually change happens. But I don't believe that's necessarily what Mike thinks, and I don't know what he thinks, and I think it's really important because actually what this film is saying is actually this is what life is like. Is there's no neat endings, you know. We're continually moving on, and things happen to us, and we have to grapple with them, and then we go on to the next thing and the next thing. Yeah.
I'd say there's hope for Moses.
Yeah.
I think that's really clear. And we'll leave it at that.
All right. Well, that's all the time we have, but can I get another round of applause, please, for
Oh,
Marianne and Michele?